Hey guys,
I'm Hallee,
and I'm Jamie.
and this is Literal Nonsense.
Hey, you sick fucking freaks.
Hello.
So today we are covering Hunting Adeline,
Yes.
the second
Ooh.
book in a cat and mouse duet, right?
Yeah. What a joy.
Oh, what a joy.
This is like gonna pain us. Well, it's gonna pain me.
Well, before we get into that, because that's going to be quite the adventure we're going to have together, you probably noticed that you're seeing us. Here's our faces.
Hello.
So we're starting video. Self-explanatory.
Well, we've done video, we just never posted it.
Yes, we've done it for like our teaser highlights. But we're going to start posting full video. And then, super exciting is that we are starting our in-person recordings together with our pod lab in January. So
Woo!
it's like a slow progression, a slow build. So we figured might as well get acclimated with our fucking faces now.
Yeah. A little slow burn.
We know that you guys like a slow burn, as do we, so here we are. Is that really our only update? Yeah, here we are. We'll be doing and posting the whole video from now on. Yeah, and then we'll let you guys know as things come along. I honestly was hoping there's more updates so that we can go along talking about this book.
We're just kind of, wow, this weather's been crazy.
Crazy. I mean, I like fall. So prolonging fall is...
I know, but fall at 78 degrees is just
No, today's like fallish,
diabolical.
though. Yeah. But I've been enjoying opening the windows. I haven't put my heat on this year. Mornings are a little cold, but it's been nice. It's been nice. Fuck.
Yeah,
okay.
It's been alright.
I guess we gotta start.
Alrighty, so the reason why we're doing this book
Because of you.
is because Haunting Adeline is one of our most viewed podcasts. So we were like, I guess we have to do the second one. I mean, the people love this, right? So
Which again, you sick fucking freaks.
it's crazy. No hate. I mean,
yeah, I was actually
people are in what they're into.
Yeah, disclaimer. No judgment. I think we said this the last episode too. Listen, no judgment. Your kinks are your kinks. We just do this for fun. We actually don't care. We don't judge anyone. Love what you're into. And listen, dark romances, right? People love them. So again, no judgment. We'll just have lots of opinions. But never judging our lovely lovelies.
Yeah. Alright, so I might as well just get right into it. The first book ended with Adeline being kidnapped. And you're like, oh shit, of course. Now she's getting sold into sex trafficking. So before we started the book, I was reading some stuff online, and then maybe it was like an author's note as well, but it was like, oh, like if you're expecting a quick reunion, like you thought wrong. And I was like, fuck.
Well, and then the trigger warning in the start of the book was like, this is more like depraved than the first. And we were like, we were like, really? Is it?
I thought they were equally as bad. I think the first one was worse in a different aspect.
Yes, I did too. Okay, good.
Compared to this one. But this one was also still very sick. And we'll talk about so the book is essentially split into two parts, right? So it's part 1, part 2. So part 1 is like while Addie is held hostage, essentially.
And she's being like, not sold, but she's being like trafficked. And and like groomed. She's in like a grooming house to be like sold on the black market as like a sex slave, essentially.
But like so they call her the Diamond because she's apparently in such high regard.
Which I'm also like, okay, here's my take with Addie. I'm like, why is this girl so fucking special? Like,
Yes.
even with
Yes.
Zaid, when he saw her at the author signing in the first book, it was like, I must stalk her and make her love me. They describe her also, okay, before we get started, really, they describe her with like cinnamon hair and like caramel eyes, right? And they, every time they say it, make it sound like this crazy combination. I feel you got like auburn hair and brown eyes. So I just also, okay.
Oh, and then also too, there's not much development in who Adeline is as a person to make you be like, wow, she is this this great person.
Yeah. Well,
She's just, to me, she's like an average Joe. I don't know. That's just my take.
I feel like, yeah, this story is just like an average Joe finding her kinks. I think that's it. That's all this is. Yeah, so she's being held in this house in the middle of nowhere. But again, as Hallee mentioned, she's the Diamond. So they're going to great lengths to make sure that she is being sold for the highest amount. And they also know that Zaid, is after them because they stole his girlfriend.
So like the only reason I guess that like she's even, the Diamond is because they just want to get back at Zaid. Which, I mean, understandable because if this guy's trying to take down your, structured establishment for
Structured establishment.
Yeah, it is. She refers to it as like the shadow government, which is crazy.
The society.
We won't get into that, but
I'm like, H.D. Carlton, do you know something?
Well, in the first book, she says like, "Oh, like this."
I'm just guessing.
This is I'm just guessing. This is a work of fiction. Like, please don't come after me.
No, isn't that crazy that she had to write that?
I mean, look, if you're in the conspiracy spiral like I am, maybe there's some truth to all this. Or if you want to live in ignorant bliss, then there's not. And
can you imagine though? How fucked would that be?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me if that's a real thing.
Also, did you dye your hair?
Yeah, I did.
That's
and I cut
nice.
it short.
Oh my god, you have no hair! What the fuck?
Yeah.
It looks good.
Thank you.
I was only looking at the roots. And then I was like, wait, there's none. Wow. Sorry.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus. Well, looks cute. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on. Wow. So, oh my god. Okay, back. So, Addie's being held in this house, and the house is run by Rocco and his sister Francesca. They're fucked up. Francesca?
You're like Francesca.
Yeah. Francesca. I also say Utah, like Utah, not Ta. Whatever. Anyways. I just don't say anything right, I think, is the problem. Yeah. So, it's being run by these two siblings. Now, we also find out in the midst of her being held captive that Claire, like the old governor's wife, who was like super submissive, whatever, she's like the big wig and there's like running the society and like the government.
Yeah, so it wasn't her husband.
It was actually really her.
Which is also sick in its own right because, like, you're a woman.
Yeah. Right.
And you're doing this to other women.
You're a woman. Yeah.
I don't know. That didn't sit well with me, but I guess, that's the point. So essentially while she's in this house, one of the guys who kidnapped her, his name is what's his name?
Rio.
The other guy's Rocco.
And then there's a Rick.
Yeah. There's a lot of...
I'm like, can we've had like a Jason or a Nick? We have Rocco, Rio, and Rick.
Yeah.
What's her deal? Did someone hurt her?
Yeah, seriously.
Fuck.
And so, like, they're bad people, right? Point blank. But then, but then Addie kind of develops this relationship with Rio in regards to, like, whenever she gets punished or she gets hurt or whatever, Rio's the one who kind of, like, nurses her back to health, and they kind of have, like, this little banter going on. And we soon
And
find
he
out.
doesn't rape her.
No, he's the only one who doesn't. And
Good job, Rio.
you get a point for that one.
Right.
We find out that the reason why he works for Francesca is because his sister is held in another house. So as long as he works for Francesca, like no harm comes to her,
Right.
essentially.
Because
But
she's like also like being sold or whatever.
yeah, it's just all very convoluted in my opinion.
So, okay.
I don't know.
My overall take on part one. So it's this book is written in like a dual point of view. So we have Zaid and Addie, which is how the first book was written. So I like that. I appreciate dual point of views always.
Mm-hmm.
My takeaway from part one was, listen, is it graphic? Is it fucked up? Absolutely. Like she's being raped and they're explicitly describing it. But weird take, I guess. I liked this part more than the first
Yeah.
book
Oh,
because
okay.
she's not enjoying it's almost taking on the vibe of like a psychological thriller horror, just like a very graphic one.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's being raped and she's not enjoying it. She's like expressing like the psychological trauma she's going through. They make the girls, there's a bunch of girls in this house, like how they're turning them against each other. They go through this like thing called the culling, which is a bunch of the rich guys come and have to like hunt the girls, and it's teaching them to be strong and
Like in the
whatever.
woods. It's
Yeah,
giving
but
like Hunger Games.
right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't mind this whole part in the sense of like, was it sick and like a difficult read? For sure. But at the same time, again, like she was responding accurately, I guess, like in my mind.
Like as you would expect.
Yeah.
Well,
Like, I wasn't down with the first book when this stalker's raping her with a gun and she was like, awesome. And I'm like, what?
yeah. And I think the same could be said about part 2 of the book as
Yeah, we'll
well.
we'll get there. Yeah. So I just felt like part one for me. Also, like Zaid's desperation to find her. Daya's involved. I thought it was all very like psychological thriller, badassery. Like he's murdering people. Also, I felt like part one, it wasn't as cringy because he's only like his weird cringy self. Like I'm your god with her.
Don't get me started with that.
Right. So like part one, honestly, I was like fine. Like I felt like certain parts were a little weird. Like she found a journal in the floorboards. Like, okay, we have another journal. Like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not. I was like one of the girls, like that used to be in the house. But everything else, I was like, she painted the characters like really gross, like the rapists. It was like definitely like a fear-inducing section. I think it was probably like 300 pages, but it was like fine. Like, I also don't mind a slow burn like reunion because it makes it like build anticipation. Um, so yeah, part one I really wasn't hating on too much.
I don't know. I didn't really feel the slow burn aspects of part 1. Because then I think of how part 2 went. Um like Addie is with like at this house for like 2 or 3 months, right?
Right.
And you know, Z is like, this fucking tech stalker wizard, and it's taking him this long to find her. Yet in
But they
part
explain that.
okay, but in part 2, he finds Claire mad fucking quick.
Mm,
And then all of a sudden they have this elaborate plan, like just like that,
yeah.
and they draw her out and she comes and then boom, she's dead. Like to
Right.
me the timelines of like what they were doing just didn't add up.
Like it wasn't like routine for the whole book or like concise. Like if you're gonna draw it out, you gotta draw out part two also.
Yeah, it wasn't consistent.
Yes. That was the word I was really
I know.
struggling to find.
Yes.
Yeah, I just yeah, I didn't mind. Like I would have been like, all right, if she was gone for like a week, like okay, first of all, this is fucked up. I don't think that I wanted her to be tortured and raped for months, but I think her being tortured and raped for months had more of like an impact as far as like the reader. Like she really like went through this. Like being raped for a week, obviously horrible, but I feel like she really like battled for her life in there. You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah,
that
but
added more like dramatic effect. And like also, what the fuck was her name in the house? Sydney? Weird bitch. What was up with that girl? I
yeah.
hated her.
Well, she was psychotic. I mean, we find out that she was also in the same cult as Sibby.
Okay, and like again, like we had the Rick, the Rocco, the Rio, the Sibby, the Sydney. I mean, can we like name someone Jessica? I
Well,
just I
okay.
can't.
Wait, to go back to your point before that you made about how like she's in this house for months, she's getting raped, whatever. In part 2 when she delves into kind of like her like recovery and like
Mm-hmm.
reclamation arc, I just
Mm-hmm.
felt like it was not done well, or that maybe it wasn't just like it wasn't realistic, right? So she's going through all these terrible experiences in part 1.
Yeah.
Obviously she's getting raped with the heel of a fucking stiletto. She's,
Yeah.
getting raped by all these guys. She's getting cut up, and then she gets sold to that guy Xavier, and he like fucking cuts her up like while he rapes her, and like all this crazy
Yeah,
shit.
he's into like blood kinks, I guess. So he's like cutting her while raping her. Like enough to like scar her, but not enough to like kill her. Like he's not trying to kill her. Um yeah, and like the only reason he's even allowed to see her, this guy Xavier, just because it's relevant, is he's like the highest payer, and so he's gonna like buy her under the table because they can't do like an official like selling because again Z would find her, and so they let him come to the house like once a month or something, or once a week maybe even I don't even know, to like come and like rape her because like she's basically his property
To come.
anyways. Which can you imagine?
No. And this is what I'm saying, right? Like, I would expect the type of trauma, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that you would be going through is
Mm-hmm.
enormous, tantamount, right? So when Zayd rescues her and she's back and she's safe, okay, so, he doesn't touch her and doesn't really, talk to her for like a few weeks. Okay.
I would
And then
argue it was like maybe like a month and a half ish, but yes, not like in like a surmount amount of time.
okay, well, I just think the amount of trauma that she went through, her recovery just didn't make sense because there's no way that you can get over all of that in the span of 2-3 months when you're with Z. And the way that he helps her recover is just asinine to me. It just doesn't make sense.
Right. Okay. Well, so let's get
In
into part I guess two because you seem passionate about it.
Yeah, because I just
Um.
don't get it,
No, I
and
agree with
like
you.
I'm really trying not to be a hater, but like I don't know. I
Okay.
can't sully the two.
Okay. So she's in this house. I'll just explain her escape or rescue or whatever, just to bleed into part two.
And that's another fucking cop out too. Really? She hides in a train and you're going to tell me that none of them knew that that train was on the property and they didn't look for it?
Right. Well, I think it was also just very convenient. I think that they like because Zayd
Yes.
killed people right before they went to the train. It just so happened that he went to go rescue her the day she escaped. Which, listen, I mean, that's one of those things where I'm not like too hung up about it because like authors do just take creative and artistic liberties, which fine. I will say though, when he finally found the house, like again, part one, I'm not gonna say like I liked it. Like it wasn't the best writing I've ever read, obviously. But part one, again, I got like very much thriller vibes. We had like the crazy girl who was like torturing her. So basically, to end part one, Addie is going to escape. She kills the crazy girl because the crazy girl is going to tell Francesca that she is trying to escape. So she kills that girl, and Rio comes in, and Rio helps her escape. Okay, so that was fine. So now she's running. She's going to go to the train, and she had found a train in the forest during the culling. So while this is happening at the same timeline, Z finally finds her location. And so they're going to rescue her. Which, granted, honestly, when he found her location, they were like, "We've got her." Like, I got like a little bit like, "Ooh," I was excited, because it was drawn out enough for me that I felt like I was like, "All right," like I'm eager enough that he finally found her. Like, it didn't just seem like it was so quick. It was like for me, like built up enough, and I was like, "Ooh, okay, yeah, go get her," Um, again, is it kind of convenient that he rescues her the same time she's escaping? Like they pull up and there's all these people looking for her, and I'm like, all right, whatever. But I wasn't too hung up about that. And then he gets to the train, and I liked it from her point of view because she thinks that they finally found her and she's panicking, and then it's him because he like killed people before they went in the train, whatever. And then he rescues her, which again I thought it was fine. Like, was it a little unrealistic? But like a lot of these novels are, so I wasn't too upset about any of that. All of part one, I was kind of like, not had hope because I don't think I had any hope really for where this was going. But I was like, okay, better than I thought, to be completely honest with you. Like, not bad. Like, I got more of that thriller vibe. We had definitely graphic rape. Like, I would recommend like being very cautious if you want to read this book. Like, trigger warnings for sure. But I was fine. Then part two comes, and so now she's rescued, and this is definitely where I start to not feel great again.
Yeah. I mean, part one was fine. I was able to read through it and not be completely annoyed. But then when I got to part two, I was just like, this is just ridiculous at this point. And honestly, a lot of the times I was skimming through it because I was just like, I am just over this. I'm over the whole, I'm your god and I'm bringing you to heaven. And, you bleed for me and me only. And I was just like, bro, shut the fuck up. Like,
Yeah,
shut up.
and he wasn't like that in part one. Like, he's only like that with her, and I'm like honestly, part one, like he had a few like one-liners where he was like, "I'll kill everyone," but like also he was like putting his money where his mouth was, so I was kind of like, fine, fine. Yeah. So part two, so Addie's rescued. They go back to Parsons Manor, the whole like spooky house from book one. She's like not talking to him. He can't touch her. And again, this part also, to start off this part, right? I had high hopes. They're doing shit. He's taking care of her. He's bringing her to get ice cream. And I was like, all right, we've turned it around. Like, we're going good. Like, this is going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because again, part one, our main hang up was, listen, and this was like our strong stance, part one. I'm not saying you shouldn't have kinks or like fantasies, or you know what? Even if you want to fucking get fucked with a gun, fine. But like, that needs to be a consensual thing. Like, she had no idea who you were. I don't even know if she even knew his name at that point. And it was rape. Like, point blank fucking not rape play. It was rape. So that was like our main hang up with part one, was like, no, once they got to know each other and it was like he was chasing her, but she very much so was like a willing participant, fine. It's not my thing, but like, if that's what you like and you're both aware of this, then I don't give a fuck. Then it's just a dark romance and I can get behind it. Again, even if book one, he stalked her, she was like, ooh, weird, but she was kind of intrigued. And then he like treated her nicely, whatever, a little bit. Not even
She
nice.
was intrigued.
She was intrigued.
She was like, I just got raped, but I kind of liked it. And
well, that was my.
You're
that
like,
was,
what?
Boo! That was my hang up. No,
so
I
then
don't
were
like.
You raped? I don't know. Like, that line becomes very blurred.
Well, and that line I think was more distinctly drawn here because she was writing, again, trigger warning, when she was being raped by Xavier, like she would say like she would orgasm, but it like made her feel almost worse because she was like, my body like betrayed me.
Well,
like
yeah, like at that point, your body is gonna react when
Correct.
it's
being like stimulated.
Yeah, exactly. But there was never a time in her mind when she was like, oh, do I like this?
Correct.
Whereas with Zayd, she was like, oh, do I like this? Even though,
but like, my point is like, what's the difference? Like, and I get it, like, whatever. But again, like, if Zayd just stalked her, she was intrigued by this stalker, and then like he like got to know her, and then they both were like, ooh, we're both kind of into like kinky shit, and it was consensual. I would have been like all okay with that. Again, maybe not my personal preference, but like I would have been okay with that as a reader. My hang up was, again, he was raping her. Like, raping her. And then it was like, oh, I kind of like am into this, and we can experiment. And I was like, well, how did we even get to this point? Like, I'm very confused. So anyways,
well now, so like in part two, obviously, like she's got whatever she's got going on. So like,
and so he's being nice at first. Like, he's
nice.
respecting her boundaries.
I think, okay, this is what I think it is though. It's like this twisted play on like like I said, reclamation, right? So, the
But in the
reason why.
beginning, it wasn't of part two. In the beginning, it was very much so like Addie was in control. Like he wasn't pushing any boundaries, and he said like I know when to push her, I know when not to, and I was like honestly, good for
Okay,
you.
I mean,
At first,
but that's the thing. Well, the way that I took it was like she's struggling because she feels powerless, right? Because of what happened to her. Okay, fine.
right,
So all of their sexual encounters become this way for her to be in control. Like she tells them like she's not ready, da da da. But then, little by little, it gets more
yeah,
like you're pushing the boundary, right? So like at first he fucking fucks her with the hilt of a knife, and you're like,
right.
what are we doing here? And
Okay,
it's
wait.
just like she's just like I for me personally, I just can't wrap my head around the idea of like being in pain and then feeling pleasure from that.
And listen, some people do, so maybe
Which is
that's
crazy.
which maybe that's part
How?
of our hang up, you know what I'm saying? Like some it's kind of like so she gave a good analogy, like like tattoo pain. Like some people are like I want to
Mm.
keep going because it's like a pleasurable kind of pain. So I think number 1, I will
To the
say,
point that you get off on it though is crazy.
I think part of our problem is maybe that we just like aren't those kinds of people. So like that makes it really like crazy for us. Okay. But talking about the knife
Vanilla
scene,
cupcake and vanilla icing? No, I'm kidding.
right. But talking about the knife scene real quick. Okay, so that scene. So that was like the first time that like, they were like being sexual. They had kissed a little.
But to
Which
go from like nothing to that
yes.
was
Okay, so
wild.
I will say their first kiss scene back when like the smoking the cigarette, that was kind of sexy. I didn't mind
Yeah.
it. She was like smoking a cigarette and was like, "You have until the cigarette like burns out to touch me, and like until the smoke goes away to kiss me." And I was kind of like, "All right, Addie, you're kind of being a bad bitch. I
Mm-hmm.
like it." But the knife scene, okay. So he is holding. First of all, he's holding the blade of the knife and fucking her with the hilt of the knife.
While his hand is getting cut up.
Correct. So now again, number 1, like you said, this girl who's been traumatized with blood, we're just bleeding all over everything. That's crazy. Number 1. Number 2, okay, the knife scene occurs, right? And I have like a vivid image in my head because of the way it was written. So fucking her with the knife. She orgasms. Okay, great, Addie, I suppose. And then they start kissing. So my problem with this was they, which I just wish HD Carlton had a little bit of foresight, because they didn't write that like he took it out. So I'm just imagining them kissing and there's just a knife sticking out from her, and I couldn't get the image out of my head. Like I was like, oh my god, she's gonna stab him with her vagina knife. Like
Her
she's
vagina
going to
knife.
stab him. And I also was thinking, like, okay, again, TMI, I'm so sorry. But imagining looking down to a knife protruding out of my body, like the wrong way, like
No.
the blade coming out between my legs. I'm like, I would panic. Panic. And how do I get it out without hurting myself? I would be like, I'm gonna cut my inner thigh. Like I would be a fucking mess. And that scene was very vivid for me just because I was like, honestly, a little panicked the whole time reading it.
It's almost worse than the gun.
It is almost worse than the gun. And granted, I didn't like that scene. I don't want a weapon near my vagina. Ever, please.
Yeah, no.
So I just felt that scene, like, that really shocked me. It was one of those things where I had, like, a physical reaction. And I was like, like, I felt it in, like, my stomach. Like, I felt nauseous.
Yeah.
um,
Um okay. The knife thing, I felt like I was kind of desensitized because the whole gun thing. So I was like,
really?
yeah,
Oh,
like I was not like I was like, wow, I can't imagine this. But I wasn't like
oh.
disturbed to the point of view, I guess.
Oh no, I like could see it happen in the plane. Like I like remember that scene like very, because again, I just she didn't write they took it out, and I really wanted to know the logistics. But I was like, is it still in her while they're kissing? Because she can't move at all. She'll hurt herself or him. She'll stab
Um
him right in the dick with her vagina knife.
I felt like there were worse things
Well,
than the
that
knife
was
scene.
I didn't know that at that point because I had not gotten to them yet. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so
Um
moving on. So now they're kind of like flirting with the idea of like sex. They're also hunting down all these big bads, you know. So that's kind of like where we're going. But
Okay.
again, I was really liking Zayd when he was taking her for ice cream. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, he could just be a normal boyfriend. Or she would even write, like, he was cooking dinner, like, taking care of her. And she was like, it's so crazy to see him domestic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So continuing on, right?
I have like 3. Let me think. I have 4 major hangups with part 2
Okay.
in
Well, so
terms
what?
of Addie and Zayd.
Okay. Well, so let's finish talking about their hookup scenes, I guess, because they just progressively get worse. And I'm sure those will relate into what you have issues with. So now after the knife scene, they're kind of like slowly but surely like making their way to finally having sex. They end up finding Xavier. They take him. Now, before they have sex for the first time, they get Francesca, Rocco, and Xavier, and they have their own culling of sorts.
This was crazy.
This is Addie's choice.
I actually didn't mind that she wanted to do like her version of the culling, which was fine.
Either.
I thought that was like good poetic justice, right?
I did too. And also because like she happens to have a creepy manor in the middle of nowhere, and I was like, you may as well.
Yeah. However, okay, the culling was fine. Whatever.
Yeah, they kill all of them.
They catch them.
Well, yeah.
They catch them. This is this is my first hang up.
I forgot.
They catch them, and then it's like Xavier, Rocco, and Francesca are like bleeding out, like in the woods, like in front of them after they catch them. And Addie, is talking to Xavier, like, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. Like, I never wanted you. How does that make you feel? XYZ.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, she's giving it to him, whatever. And then it's just like, your world is flipped 180 degrees. And then all of a sudden, Zayd comes up behind her, and he just starts, like, unzipping her pants. And then he just starts fucking rubbing on her in front of Xavier.
I couldn't wait to see how you described it.
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And like, she's like talking to him, and he's talking to him, and he's like, Xavier's like, can you stop? Like, everyone's uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I'm like,
Xavier's like, actually, I hate this.
He's like, I'm like, what is going on? And then like, obviously she gets off, and I was just like, why did we do that? What was the point of that? Okay, like to show like, okay, like she's your girl. That's a bit extreme. Yeah, I did not think that was sexy at all.
He's like, I'm gonna give her an orgasm in front of her rapist. Boom, like bad bitch move. And I was like, I don't think that like hit how you wanted it to.
I thought that was very strange. That was the first point where I was like, no.
Also, I'm sorry. Like, again, I will be very clear in saying that like I cannot talk to how like a victim of these things or your body would react, but I'm going to make this assumption. So if I'm wrong, you can message us and yell at me. But I'm also like, I feel like her body would be in such like fight or flight around Xavier that she wouldn't even be like capable of like being horny. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess that points back to the thing like your body will respond to stimulation.
I'd also be like, can you not right now?
But she was also like into it.
She was so into it, but she's just like, into whatever Zayd does.
Okay, but this is also another thing with the culling, right? Like, and progressively with the rest of part 2 is that like anytime there's something scary going on, she always talks about like the slickness between her thighs, and I'm like, what? First of all, certain words should just be cut out from the English language, and that's one of them.
I actually think of like a seal, like a seal, like
the animal,
like their slick skin.
I hate that. I really hate that.
I think it's cute, like in that case.
Or like when they're like, what else do they say? There's like
any of his God references make me want to kill myself.
Okay, we'll get to that. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like I just don't get that. I just don't. Whatever. I hated that. I hated all of it. She ruined Addie's version of the culling for me.
Yeah, if she just shot him in the fucking head, great.
I was expecting like maybe they'll torture him. They're gonna have this culling, and then they're gonna bring him back to the house, and then just like start to dismember them one by one.
Yeah, they tortured them slightly, but I'd rather more torture, less weird orgasms.
Okay, and then that was another thing too, because like they were each assigned a person, right? So Sibby had Francesca,
Fine.
Addie had Xavier, and then Rocco and Zayd. And Addie was like, I'm so happy that like by the time Zayd is done with Rocco, like he'll have no blood left in him. I'm like, that was fucking false. So I was thinking in my head like there was gonna be like actual torture scenes, and I was like, okay, we're gonna get in a little bit into horror, but like no,
Yeah, I would have liked
no.
more of that. I agree. Also, like, yeah, like how angry Zayd was. This big ass fucking smelly man was raping your girlfriend, and you're telling me like you took his eyes out? Like, weak.
I mean, like he stabbed him through the mouth, which was
That was sick.
that was crazy.
That was sick.
I
He
was
stabbed him like here, and it came out here, and then his mouth filled with blood, and then he was taking his eyes out. But like, I feel like I wish there was more emphasis on those things.
I know instead of like the whole
Yeah.
everything else. Okay, anyways,
Yeah, we had way too much of him finger banging her in front of her rapist. I mean, Jesus Christ.
and like that's the thing too, and it's like, look, I get a big part of these romance movies, romance books
Don't make this
is
a movie.
a big part of these romance books is the smut, right? Like the people love the smut. Okay, I get
Yes.
it. So you're gonna take time to like write out these scenes, but like sometimes it just feels like it's inserted the wrong way. No pun intended, but like
I didn't even like catch it until like you pointed it out.
that was funny.
That was great.
That was
That was
really good.
great.
Um, you know what I mean?
No
Like
thoughts left in my head.
you know what I mean? It's like say like
Mm.
you're going through the woods and then all of a sudden there's just like a suburbia right in the middle of the woods. Like that, it's just wrong. Well, the placement's wrong. You know what I mean?
So okay, so first hang up, I totally agree with. So then we progress with their sex. Now he's like, he's fucking, he's like tickling her clit with a rose. I mean, okay. Then he's like licking the rose. I don't even know the fuck was going on in that scene. So
Yeah,
skipping over that.
that was I don't even know.
Which I was like, I would be so ticklish. I'd be like, whoo, get the fuck away from me. Back up. Anyways, whatever. We're getting to know each other way too much this episode. Anyways, so fine. So then, okay. So now she's like still dealing with like her trauma and they still have not had sex yet. But she's like starting to take control and she's like, like letting him penetrate a little bit, but she's like controlling it, whatever. So then we progress. And
You know what my problem is? You know what my problem I think it is that like this woman was tortured, but like she has no problem when Zayd tortures her.
Yeah, so that's what we're gonna get to. So she's in the mirror one scene and she's looking at all the scars on her body from Xavier.
Oh my god, this is my second hang up.
Wow, I can't speak. I love how I know exactly what your hangups are before you've said them, and I'm just pointing at the scenes to like throw them to you. I'm like perfectly pitching you the ball.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're in the mirror and she's like, all these scars, I'm so ugly. Okay. And he's like, you gotta reclaim it. Like, you can only think of me from now on when you look at them. And he's like, and he asks consent and is like, I'm going to recut you all these scars so that you think of me. And it's like a pleasurable experience. Okay, you go first.
Was this before or after he carved the rose into her breast?
Before.
This was before, so he did that after?
Yeah. Because that was when they like legit had sex for the first time.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'm like, I'm slow burning to the big points for you.
I forget the timeline of things.
To be fair, that is a build up. We can't carve a rose into someone's skin without first cutting them slightly.
I didn't understand the scene at all.
Okay.
Maybe it's just because I don't like pain. So like if I have a scar or scars in the tenderest places of my body, I don't care how much I fucking love you. You're not cutting me open again. And I understand, it's again the whole reclamation arc, right? Like not erasing, but like covering the bad memories with like memories of him, which is in her brain good.
Mm-hmm.
Just I don't know. I don't personally fantasize about cutting people up.
No, me either. God.
And I could see like where she was going with it, but it just fell very flat for me.
So, okay.
And I just thought it was unnecessary. It was unnecessary.
Okay, well, I agree with that part, but I'm going to disagree with you actually, which I'm very shocked I'm saying. Um, again, okay. The only reason I don't mind these parts in particular is because he's asking her consent first and he's like, reclaim it, like, we kind of have this like BDSM vibe going, like I'll redo it and we'll make it like a pleasurable, because Addie very clearly likes the mix of pleasure and pain. So again, whether we can relate to that or not, that's very much Addie's thing. So fine, like again, she found a partner who's like into that and whatever. Again, I don't agree with how it happened because again, he was raping her, dare I say, for the 90th time. But now that they're past that, because why there's even a past that is fucking beyond me. But I'm gonna just pretend that didn't happen. And so now that we've gone past that, I don't mind this so much because in the beginning, he very much respected her boundaries, got her ice cream, cooked her dinner, XYZ. And now they just kind of, to me, are coming off at this point. We'll continue. At this point, are coming off as a couple who just are into BDSM, and he's always asking her consent, and is like, "Hey, like I think this would help you reclaim it, and like you would just view it as like one of our kinky things. Like, are you into it?" And she's like, "Yes," and he's like, "Okay, great, we'll do it." And he even writes, "I cut her just enough to like make her bleed a little, like not like carving into her." So this particular hang up, I didn't mind again because at this point, to me, they're just a couple who's into like some kinky cutting BDSM blood play. And again, whether or not like it gets me off reading this book, like I'm like, all right, fine. Like they clearly are enjoying themselves. They're two consenting adults. Pop off. I also, like I said, cannot claim to understand like the psychology behind this. Like maybe that really is how someone who's gone through this would reclaim their body. I can't speak to that, but I was like, okay, fine. Fine. I don't know. So I didn't hate it for those reasons. My mind is going to change in a few pages, but you know what I'm saying? Like, So yeah. And then to Hallie's next hang up, they're going to have sex for like the first time for real, for real. And she's telling him she loves him for the first time ever, first man she's ever saying it to. And he basically is like, prove it. And I was like, well, damn, bitch. Like, the fuck? Whatever. Like, she was just raped for months on end, but sure, whatever. And then he had carved a rose into his chest, which, psycho. To like prove to remember his mess up of letting her get taken. And she's like, I want you to carve a rose into my chest. Which again, okay. Two consenting adults, fine. But I'm also imagining this from a stance of like if one of my friends came over and had a rose carved into their chest and they were like, my boyfriend did it, I'd be like, what? Okay, so go ahead. What's your hang up?
Just why? 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 Get a tattoo. Okay?
Well, she did already of a rose. This bitch loves roses.
Why are we mutilating our bodies? Why? I don't know.
Some people do though. Okay, but here's my thing with this, which I just find peculiar in the sense of the whole plot. It's crazy, and Addie mentions this like throughout part 2. Like, there's so much blood play in this part 2, which was what she hated the most in part 1, being raped. So it's just more intriguing, I suppose, to me that like now she's like, I love seeing his blood or my blood on him, and I'm like, what the like? There's like blowjobs with blood happening. Like, there's all kinds of fucked up shit going on.
The switch up was real quick, and
yes,
for the whole thing with the rose, right? So it's like she's, it's almost like a pledge to say like you were my god forever and ever, and
that shit pisses me off. I mean, yeah. He, like the whole time they're fucking, he's like, you ready to go to heaven? And I'm like, I would be so icked out.
Yes. So Ew. It's like, exactly.
I mean, can you fucking relax?
So he's carving a rose into her chest as like a symbol of like their bond, right? And nothing's gonna come between them, and he's her god for life, and he will always find her, save her, do whatever he wants to her because that's his role. Okay, that's fine if that's what you want. but the end of the book, I think it was like chapter 41, 42, when after all the shit happens with, her parents getting taken and all this stuff, and he comes into the room and she was like, I never loved you. This is Stockholm syndrome, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't be with you anymore. I'm like, what?
Well, and my thing with
It
that
was
is,
so, it again, it was one of those things where it was just like ploop, plopped in and had no relevance to anything, because the whole book you're saying one thing and now
right.
it's like this one scene. Okay, I get, like, yeah, indirectly he's the reason why your parents were taken, but like you you got him back, and everything has been reconciled. So like I'm confused.
Well,
It
so here's
just
my thing with
it
that
was
is
just
like,
dramatic for no reason, and
you
I
either
felt like it didn't need to happen.
you either have to lean in heavy, like these are two consenting adults and they're a little freaky and fine, or you have to lean into the part of like the Stockholm syndrome part, right? And so to like throw that in, it almost like discredits like the consent of the whole thing.
It discredits everything.
And so that's okay.
And I
So
get it, she just wanted to like save her skin, like she didn't know, like, maybe he really is a bad guy. Okay, whatever. But like you've done all of this up to this point, and
right.
now all of a sudden you're like, yeah, bye, peace.
Okay. And so my overall thing, why I was okay with all those scenes, even the Rose scene, I didn't like it, but I was like, all right, she's literally asking him to do this. So like, fine, like these are your personal preferences. Once we start doing Stockholm syndrome, this is where I'm like not okay again, because it's like you're again basically saying like non-consent, and like that's where again I get an icky vibe. Like, why are we romanticizing non-consent? Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, if we have two adults who are dating, etc., and they're like, we have like rape play, whatever, okay, fine, because that's like a kink and you can for sure do that. Even if you're like, you have to have a safe word. Okay, let's play non consent, but when I have a safe word, I'm like being legit and like, we gotta stop. So for book one, why I like book one less was there was genuine scenes with the two of them of non-consensual sex. Like I said, once we got to the parts of the book where, he has a belt around her throat and she's giving a blowjob, but she's into it, I was like, honestly, hot. Fine. Way to go, guys. Like, this is great for both of you. Again, this book, why I was felt better with it, was it things that again are my personal preferences? No, but I can see where dark romance readers would like it. People who like are in the BDSM world, I could see why they're into it, because again, it's like kind of fucked up, it's kind of crazy, it's like exciting, but again, very consenting adults. Once we're now claiming Stockholm syndrome, it's like you're discrediting all of that, and again, in my strong opinion, you're now romanticizing non-consent again, which I just don't think. Again, maybe I'm uneducated, unsure, but I'm pretty sure even in BDSM communities, consent is like a huge fucking thing. Like, even if you're playing or whatever or hurting each other, like there's always a level of like knowing the boundaries, respect, and consent. So to then go back and like take away all that you've done this whole book, I don't appreciate glamorizing and romanticizing non-consent. That's fucking crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
Yep.
Mic drop. Bam. I actually have a microphone I could drop, but I'm not going to. Like, that
Yep.
bothers me. Honestly,
It's just inconsistent.
it is inconsistent. And also, it's like, you were so close. You were so close. And then, like, yeah, like you said, like, aside for, like, my, like, moral hangups with it, like, why even add it? Why even, like...
Yes, literally. And then not only that too, but like I was really thrown for a loop when her dad fucking entered the picture in the last fucking 50
Yes!
pages of the book.
She doesn't give a fuck about this guy.
First of all, he like I'm pretty sure he was never mentioned in the first book, like ever. It was only about the mom. And to my knowledge, I didn't even know she had a dad, to be honest.
I think she mentioned him in the second book and was basically like, I don't have a relationship with him.
Okay, that's fine, but now you're introducing this new character at the end of the book, and he has such a big role that like he's preventing Addie from seeing her mom after everything that happened, and like playing the protective father, and he's like, if you want to fuck your life up, your mom and I are not going to be a part of it. I was like, again, so fucking random. Like, why are you adding this in at the last minute?
Right, whereas we've known her mom, we've had, from book one, I don't want you living in Parsons Manor. We live differently. X, Y, Z. Okay, fine. So it's like, just have her. And like now, her mom feels guilty and is coming to visit her after she was abducted. Number one, aside from even if her dad wasn't in book one, if you really wanted to give him that big role at the end of the book, why not have him be like, oh my God, I heard you got abducted. I'm so sorry for being absentee. I want to be part of your life. Because then it would have at least had like a, I don't know, more reasonable like transition. Well, but it's like, either introduce her dad, even if again you drop the ball book one and don't introduce her dad, you had a perfect entryway after she got abducted to say, oh my God, Addie, I want to be back in your life. I realized once you got abducted, like how much I've not been around, whatever.
Well, that's
or just kidnap her mom. That's it.
Yeah, because her mom was going on, the fucking the apology train with Addie, and like there were a lot of parts in part two where like she's with her mom and they're trying to come together, but never mentions anything about her dad.
Yeah, so either literally, like I said, there was perfect times where you could have inserted him to the story if you felt that strongly about it, or just don't put him there. Kidnapping her mom would have been just as impactful.
Exactly.
So I feel like, and again, like, when I say, like, we were so close, I mean, this book was going to be, like, without those few things at the end, maybe 3 stars for me. Like, just because, again, I think the consent thing made me just have a different feeling in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, you add those things, and now back down to 2 stars. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the best person in this book was Sibby. To be honest,
she's great. She's hysterical.
She offered the most comic relief.
I liked her.
She was actually hilarious.
She let her fucking freak flag fly.
Yeah, she really did, which was great. But like also confused. Again, at the end of the book, she runs away with the fucking mother's aid. Like, I'm confused. What?
A lot of unnecessary things, whereas I feel like it could have, like, you could have just ended it again. Get back. Oh, okay. So pretend only the mom was kidnapped. Get the mom back. You don't have the Stockholm syndrome thing. I don't know. Sibby, I don't care. She was kind of erratic, so I feel like whatever happened to her would have been, like, fine. And then, like, they could just be dating and, like, in their BDSM happily ever after. I just feel like there was a lot of unnecessary, like, last-ditch efforts in, like, the last 100 pages.
Yeah. And then, like, especially after, she, like, tells him off and she's like, I actually don't love you. And then he, like, runs away and then she's, like, chasing after him through the woods. And she's like, I'm so sorry, da-da-da. And then they fucking do whatever they do in the woods. It's just, like, is that what this is all about? Like, the chase?
Maybe.
Like, the hunt and the chase? Like, is it just, like, a whole major role, flipper thing? Like, I don't know. I felt like overall,
yeah,
I gave book 1 3 stars because minus the rape.
What?
It could have been.
Really?
Yeah, I gave it 3 stars because I felt besides the rape, I felt like the story was kind of pretty solid. Besides the fact that she's falling in love with the stalker, but like,
interesting.
If it didn't have those crazy fucking rape scenes and whatnot,
solid story in your mind,
I felt like it could have just been like okay, like what makes this any different than like the thrillers we read, right? Correct. Stuff like that. Now book 2, I just felt like it was way too all over the place. It was just a mishmash of just like random shit. Like, I felt like it was all just for the reaction. I also just could not get down with the rape, lol, and even their consensual sex scenes. I just couldn't get into it. She lost me. She lost me completely, this book.
So book 1 3 stars for you. Book 2
1 star.
Okay, so interesting because I'm almost the opposite. So book 1, I originally gave 2 stars. I think I'm going to go back and give it 1 star because, again, I'm really, really hung up about the non-consensual rape and then, like, falling in love with him. Again, I think, like, falling in love with the stalker, kind of sexy, kind of hot, but once you start raping her, I'm kind of, like, you lost me just for good. I didn't mind the story, so maybe I will leave it at 2 stars. Because I kind of liked, like, undercover sex trafficking, like, breaking down the bad guys. Okay, whatever. Now, book 2, I would have given it 3 stars. Because, again, I think the story, it was cool. Like, super thriller vibes for me. Like, in the grooming house, the culling, I think she described her trauma well, actually. I think it was sped up for the purpose of the book, which made it a little unrealistic. But I like thought it was good and respectable that he like at least it was acknowledged that he was giving her space and allowing her boundaries and all that. Okay, fine. Then their sex scenes were always consensual. So up until like the last 100 pages, it would have been a 3-star book. Once you're throwing in random plot points of I have Stockholm syndrome, I never loved you, my parents are gone, who the fuck is even her dad? Like whatever. That for me made it back to a 2-star. It's hard though because I guess maybe they really are both true 2-star books for me. This one was real close to 3 until the end, I will say. I just thought it was more of like a thriller vibe. I enjoyed it. I just, like I said, I really get like bent out of shape about like you're glamorizing genuine non-consent. And that's kind of crazy to me. Yeah. Like I'm really curious. Again, not that I'm going to say like write in because it's like your business and I don't like need to know any of these things. Like I'm not privy to this information, but I'm curious how people like feel about it if they've ever been in a situation like, are they upset with this author that like she's glamorizing non-consent? Again, BDSM consensual way different than some of the other situations that she's clearly romanticizing. So like, are people upset about this? Do they like it? Like I don't know what other people think about this.
Well, this book has almost like 4.5 stars on Goodreads.
But what was book 1? Because again, I would argue that this book has more consensual sex in it.
I mean, book 1 I think was also pretty up there as well.
Interesting. I don't know.
I have not heard anything bad truly about this series. And the most that people say is like, I don't know what this says about me, but I love it. That's like all I hear.
But again, so me and you also are a little bit of sticklers.
Okay, so the first book has like 4 stars.
Okay.
But maybe people just don't, aren't thinking that deep into it. Maybe they're just
so that was what I was going to just
for
say.
The ride.
Is you and I are very much like sticklers for like plot holes or plot points. We want things to line up. So again, the end of this book, I can understand where even if we disagree with the like sex scene hangups, it makes sense to me that we both would have hangups with the end of the book as far as like, what the fuck, this random dad, oh, she's changing her mind. Like it just isn't consistent for us, and we always are bothered by that for like any of the books we read. Some people I feel like, or even when we read Hidden Pictures and we're like, that was kind of a lot. Like other people are just like, oh my god, this is shocking, they're eating it up, know, and they don't even like care, which again is totally fine. It's like we're probably just honestly annoying. Like,
yeah.
It's not like we're better. It's like I think we're just irritating. We think we're like literary critics.
Yeah.
So I feel like, if it wasn't for the end of this book, or if say we didn't care about that and that's not our general vibe of caring about like certain plot holes or like random things being added, I could see this book being higher rated than book 1 just based off the sex vibe. Was when it was rape, it was bad. When it was with her boyfriend or her lover or whatever the fuck he is, it was like consensual, and like that distinct line was indeed drawn. Even when it was BDSM vibe or blood play or kinks, there was like a very much like, are you okay with this? I don't want to push you. Like, I'll push you if you tell me I'm allowed to, but let me know before we get started. Like, is this okay? And I very much appreciated that. Like, is this a book I'm going to recommend to my fucking mom? No. You know what I'm saying? Like,
imagine Laura reading this book.
No, I don't even want to know what Laura's like thoughts would be. I actually was sitting in bed, so we got the PDF of this book. Sorry, not sorry. I was not buying this. And I was like laying in bed reading, like, I think it was the rose scene next to my husband. And I was like in my head, like, please don't like just like look over and like read it, anything, any part of this. I was like really embarrassed. I'm like, it's for the pod.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's my overall vibe. I think both books for me honestly got 2 stars, but like for different reasons.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad because like I thought that I would be someone who likes dark romance.
Are you realizing what a vanilla bitch you are?
I don't know. This is just, I think this is like the dark side of humanity, This is like dark territory.
But then also part of me is like, this is one of our most viewed episodes. Like, do we just have dark fucking audience? Like, how did we get here?
Is this actually how the majority of people are?
Well, that, or we've just attracted the dark ones.
I mean, which is fine. I
Yeah,
mean, I would love to read a dark romance that is good. I
yeah.
would love it.
So, okay, so this is where we need your guys' help actually, because I agree with Hallie. And so, okay, you've listened now for an hour of our hangups and like the things we like and don't like about this book. Do you guys have a dark romance that you can like recommend us that again, I'm down. Like, maybe not a personal preference, but I'm down for kinks and blood play and all that. Just make it like actually consensual. Um, so yeah, if you guys happen to have one that would like check those boxes, let us know. We'll read it, we'll cover it, whatever.
I think also too is that like with dark romance, we really like went head first into like a heavy one. You know what I
Maybe
mean?
did we, or is it like what if this is even the worst?
No, I think there's other ones that aren't as
Okay,
crazy as this.
okay,
Um,
okay.
I mean, actually, my friend Shallon, shout out Shallon, she's over in California. She she recommended a she reads dark romance, and she was saying that the I actually have it here somewhere.
Oh
Scarred
yeah,
by Emily McIntyre. They're like actually like Disney
yes.
retellings
You got that when we were in
in Maine.
Yes. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Massachusetts. I'm like, we weren't in Massachusetts.
No, we were in Maine.
Yeah, you got that when we were in Maine together.
And she says it's nothing like it has the aspect. It's not I don't know. I
Okay.
whatever. You know what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah.
maybe like something a little bit fluffier. I don't know.
Okay. I'm interested. And so speaking of fluffier, we're really changing it up next week. Let's okay, well there's a multitude of reasons why we are covering our next book. And
Mood
so if
readers.
we are such mood readers. Number one, I needed something along these lines after Hunting Adeline. And if you follow our Instagram, you saw that we met Lori Gilmore, who is the writer of the Dream Harbor series. So there's 3 right now. There's Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which a bunch of you guys on TikTok and Book Talk have been like ranting and raving about. So it was on my TBR list just in general. I was like, oh, I'll check it out. Like, I will always look into like popular Book Talk books. I trust those people. So I had it on my list. We ended up going to meet Lori Gilmore, like very serendipitous, weird,
Mm-hmm.
random thing. So she like personally signed our books. It was like such an exciting. She was great. We'll talk definitely more of that interaction in our next episode. But so because of that, we're going to cover the first 3 books of the Dream Harbor series next. Again, I think I just need like an influx of like happiness now.
3 is daunting to me.
3 is, but I think we'll be okay. Hallie just so
It's
also
hard for me to commit to
yes,
such fluffy writing like so strongly. You know what I
and
mean?
also you don't know what to expect yet. I will say like last year we very heavily the first year of the podcast we're just seeing like what stuck, what didn't, doing a lot of solo books. We've noticed that series do best, and like multiple episode novels, I guess, do good. So last year Hallie was like, we'll do like 1 series a year. Now somehow we're doing like 3 next year. Anyways, but yeah, so we haven't done a series in a while, and I think just again the vibe after Hunting Adeline, I guess this could be considered a series. But we kind of are just gonna do the 3 Dream Harbor, just end the year off, happy, good vibes, and then we're pretty much rolling right into the new year, which we have so many exciting things to tell you guys about. So I think it'll be a nice, like, calm way to end our year. Like, we'll rant about some
Yeah.
boys. We'll chat. It's very Gilmore Girl esque, which shockingly you also liked the show. Like, it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think like I've started the book, and we have to go into it like that. Like, it's just like, yeah, no one's getting fucking sex trafficked or kidnapped, but like just go into it like, all right, there's no real problems, but like just go for the ride and like enjoy it. And I feel like going in with that mindset is nice, especially after this book. So, well, I guess you'll see how we feel about it next week.
Thanks for the pep talk.
Yeah, I had to give her one. But yeah, so we'll talk more about our meet and greet with Lori Gilmore next week. and we'll be covering the first book of the Dream Harbor series, which is Pumpkin Spice Cafe.
Woo!
So, oh, Jesus Christ. And it's still fall weather here, so we're really like leaning into the coziness. So,
Yeesh.
all right, so we'll see you guys next week.
Okay.
For
We
Pumpkin
hope you
Spice.
enjoyed the depravity of this book and our unwarranted opinions.
And our faces for a whole hour.
Yay!
So that's exciting. Oh, and, you know, after this, there'll be like a cute little video, and our intro had a cute video. What'd you guys think? So, ready? It's starting now. See you next week.